So you really want to get to the heart of Surah Al-Ankaboot.
Yep.
Huh? Chapter 29 of the Quran.
Yeah.
Straight to those life lessons it's offering.
Yeah.
Well, you've come to the right place, because that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Definitely.
This surah, revealed mostly in Mecca,
Right.
during a time of, intense pressure for those early Muslims. Though some verses might be from a little later, from Medina.
Yeah, that's right.
It goes deep, really deep, into why believers go through trials, what we can learn from the prophets who came before, and ultimately, where true strength comes from.
It really is a powerful surah. Even its name, the spider, comes from a really important image that we'll get to later on.
Oh, for sure.
But right from the start, right off the bat, it tackles this super fundamental question about faith and hardship.
Oh, it does, totally. I mean, verse 2 just straight up asks us, do people think that they will be left alone after they have once said, we have believed, and they will not be tested? Just putting it right out there, making it clear that tests, challenges, they're like a built-in part of believing.
Exactly. And then verse 3 comes in and says, hey, this isn't anything new. This has always been the case.
Right.
Allah tested those who came before us to separate, to distinguish the ones who were truly sincere in their faith from those who maybe weren't.
Interesting.
It's think of it as a way to reveal the true nature of belief. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because some commentaries mention that the tougher the tests are, the stronger your faith might actually be.
Oh, wow.
With the prophets, those who are closest to Allah, facing the most difficult trials of all. And those trials, they can come in so many forms. Fear, loss, all sorts of difficulties.
So let's say these trials hit, right?
Yeah.
How do people usually react?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Verse 10 talks about some people who, when they face persecution, they see it as a punishment from Allah and they turn away. But the surah, it offers a different perspective, right?
Sure, absolutely.
It encourages patience, sabr,
Yes.
and reminds us that those prophets, they endured similar or even worse hardships. It's about drawing strength from their examples, seeing how they navigated those really, really tough times.
Right, exactly. It's about realizing that these difficulties aren't necessarily a bad sign or anything. They can be opportunities for growth,
Yeah.
and for those who are truly sincere in their faith to stand out.
Okay, that's interesting.
Then we come to verses 12 and 13, and they talk about this kind of sneaky tactic that some people try to use.
Oh, what's that?
It's where disbelievers will say to believers, hey, if you renounce your faith, we'll take on your sins for you. But the surah shuts that down right away.
It does.
It emphasizes, no, you're responsible for your own actions, your own choices.
You can't just pass that on.
Right, exactly. And it also says that if you mislead others, you're responsible for the consequences of that too. It's all about individual accountability, taking ownership of your spiritual journey. Now, to really drive this point home, the surah dives into some powerful stories of prophets from the past.
Right.
And it starts with Prophet Nuh, or Noah, as he's known in English.
Right. Noah. Wow, so he preached for 950 years.
Can you believe that?
That is unbelievable. 950 years. And still, most people just rejected him.
Yeah, they did.
But in the end, he and the believers who were with him were saved from that massive flood, which, kind of served as a consequence for those who rejected the truth.
It's a pretty stark consequence.
It is, right. What I find so amazing is that even after preaching for so long, almost a millennium, with very little to show for it, he never gave up. And that's what we can learn from him. Perseverance, that unwavering commitment.
Their trust that divine help will always come, even if it takes what seems like forever.
Totally. Okay, so who's next?
Next up, we have Prophet Abraham,
Okay.
who called his people to Tawhid, the oneness of God.
Right.
And he faced an incredible test. I mean, he was thrown into a fire.
Oh, wow.
But Allah saved him miraculously.
So that shows that even when you're up against, unimaginable danger, if you're committed to that core principle of Tawhid, Allah will support you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth noting that prophethood continued through his descendants, which is a huge blessing.
It is.
It really shows how powerful true conviction can be, even when everything seems stacked against you. Faith and reliance on God can lead to extraordinary outcomes.
Okay, so who's the next prophet we learn about?
Well, next we have Prophet Lut, or Lot, who was sent to a community that was engaged in some really immoral practices.
Right.
And he warned them, he tried to guide them away from those actions, but they refused to listen.
And that led to?
Well, it led to a very severe punishment. Only Lut and the members of his household who believed were saved.
His wife?
His wife was not.
It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? That when a society's morals decline so drastically, there can be serious consequences.
And it also shows that even family ties, even being married to a prophet, doesn't guarantee your safety if you choose a path that goes against divine guidance.
Wow, okay. I hadn't really thought about it like that before.
It's definitely something to reflect on. The surah also makes brief mentions of other prophets and their communities,
Okay, like who?
like Shu'aib and the people of Madian, Ad and Thamud,
Right.
and even figures like Korun, Firon, and Haman. They all received warnings and saw clear signs, but they still rejected the messengers sent to them.
Hmm.
Their wrongdoing, whether it was through corruption, arrogance, or outright denial of truth, ultimately led to their downfall.
And this is a pattern that keeps repeating itself throughout history.
Yeah, exactly. These stories, even though they're brief, they really drive home that point. These divine laws, they're timeless, and there are many ways that societies can stray from the path and face the consequences.
Then we get to this super striking parable of the spider's web.
Yeah, in verses 41-44,
Right.
it compares those who put their trust in false gods or idols to a spider building this incredibly delicate, fragile home.
Yeah, verse 41 says it perfectly. The frailest of all houses is the spider's house. If they only knew.
It's such a powerful image, right? You see spider's web, and it might seem intricate and kind of strong in a way, but it can be destroyed so easily.
Like a gentle breeze can just wipe it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the same way, anything we put our complete trust in, besides Allah, is going to be unreliable in the end. It won't be able to protect us or give us true fulfillment.
It's like building your whole life on a foundation of sand.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, and then the surah shifts gears a bit and talks about the importance of prayer, salah,
Yeah.
and the remembrance of Allah, dhikrullah.
Right, in verses 45-51.
Exactly.
Yeah, and verse 45 tells us straight up that prayer prevents us from immorality and evil deeds, and that remembering Allah is the greatest thing we can do. It's about keeping that connection strong, purifying ourselves, and staying aware of His presence in our lives.
I'm struck by how it emphasizes the quality of our prayer,
Yeah, for sure.
It's not just about going through the motions. It's about really engaging with it, letting it transform us from the inside out.
Absolutely. And dhikrullah, that encompasses any way we remember Allah, whether it's through formal prayer or just being mindful of Him throughout the day.
So it's like constantly remembering and connecting with Him.
Exactly. And the surah wraps up by touching on a lot of important themes. Allah as the ultimate provider, encouraging migration, hijrah, when your faith is under threat. The importance of striving for Allah, jihad, even though its benefits ultimately come back to us, and the promise of guidance for those who sincerely strive.
It's a lot to unpack, but it's all so important.
It is. It reminds us that this life is temporary, and the real reward is in the hereafter.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it encourages us to prioritize our faith, to be willing to sacrifice for it, and to place our ultimate trust in Allah, knowing that He's the only one who can truly provide and guide us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Surah Al-Ankaboot, I'm going to leave you with a question. What are the spider webs in your own life? What are those things that you might be relying on for security or happiness, but that could be swept away so easily? And how can you build a truly strong foundation for your life? One that's based on a real, consistent connection with the divine.
It's a question worth pondering.
It is. Thanks for exploring this with us.
Absolutely.
Until next time.